Hi everyone, it's Miss Brenner. I hope you're all doing well and staying happy and healthy. We are going to go over our week 3 agenda. So in science fiction this week, we are going to be starting the play A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. We are going to start off with a perspectives discussion where you are going to need to pick 7 of the 14 statements that are listed and explain whether you strongly agree or strongly disagree with the statements. It can be a combination of agreeing and disagreeing as long as you are explaining your reasoning. You make sure that you use full sentences and examples and detailed description to support your reasoning for the statements. After you have created your initial post, you're going to comment on 2 other students' posts explaining politely why you agree or disagree with their opinion about these central topics. So some of the topics that we're looking at are, is it better to marry for love than money? Children should act in accordance with the rules their parents decree. True love never runs smoothly. If a child does not listen to a parent's demand, the child should be punished severely. People's emotions usually control how they act. Love is the most powerful emotion we feel. If you can't live with the rules, change your environment to accommodate what rules you prefer. Parents act with the best interests of the child in mind. Females worry too much about looks and beauty. Strong emotions can change the kind of people we are. Chaos and confusion are necessary parts of life. People can control their own fate. People's actions can influence other people's lives, and people's ideas of love can and often do change. So those are the 14 different statements that are central to our play that we're going to be starting this week, and I'd like you to pick 7 to voice your opinions about. All right, back to our regular week 3 agenda. So then we have our first ed puzzle, which is for A Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 1, Scene 1. I recommend that you have the ed puzzle split screened with the No Fear Shakespeare translation, which is linked in the Activity 1 folder right here. It does the original text next to a modernized text to help you better understand what the characters are saying. I will say some of the characters have an odd accent in the ed puzzle. I don't know why some characters are British and other characters decide they want to be Scottish, but it is nice to be able to see the characters on stage. So we have a combination of the ed puzzle with questions involved and the No Fear Shakespeare translation. We then have a worksheet for Act 1, Scene 1 that talks about foreshadowing. So you will need to reference your notes from foreshadowing to decide what examples from the story you feel represent contrast and contradiction, aha moments, tough questions, words of the wiser, again and again, and memory moments, which are different forms of foreshadowing. So you're going to find examples from Act 1, Scene 1. We're looking for 5 examples specifically, and we are going to quote or paraphrase that moment from the story. We are then going to identify what form of foreshadowing we believe it exemplifies, and then we are going to explain how this moment could change or shape the story, along with explaining the impact this element of foreshadowing has on the reader's connection to the characters and plot of the story. So in order to get full credit, you need to have 5 examples from the story paraphrased or quoted, 5 explanations as to what form of foreshadowing those 5 examples are, and then 5 explanations as to how those different moments shape the story and shape your perception of the characters in the plot. All right, back to the agenda. We then have Act 1, Scene 2's ed puzzle that has questions in it as well, and I do once again recommend that you have the No Fear Shakespeare open along with the ed puzzle to follow along. Activity 2, we are looking at Act 2, Scene 1 in ed puzzle with a foreshadowing chart. So the chart is identical to the one from Act 1, Scene 1. It is the same premise of finding 5 examples of foreshadowing, identifying what forms of foreshadowing those 5 examples are, and then explaining the connection to shaping the plot and your connection to the characters and the plot overall. We then have an ed puzzle for Act 2, Scene 2, and another foreshadowing chart, which is 5 examples from Act 2, Scene 2. I once again recommend that you have the No Fear Shakespeare open. A lot of people prefer to hear the audio and see the text, and so split screen I think is the most efficient way to do that. for Wednesday's creative writing, not that you specifically have to do these on Wednesdays, but if you're sticking with the flow of the regular school week, it would be about midweek you would be doing creative writing, which are different prompts for this are for this week. Write about a character who's stuck in an elevator when the power goes out. Write a story about someone who's famous for something they never actually did. Write a story about two people meeting during unusual circumstances and becoming fast friends. Or you can write a story that either starts or ends with someone asking you, can you keep a secret? Also, some students have asked me if they could write a short story about the character that they created from Theseus and Hippolyta's offspring. You are more than welcome to do that as well as an option. Just please make that like the bold heading above your short story that that's what you are writing about, so I'm not confused where the story came from. Alrighty. We also have theme and motif notes. I do recommend taking your own personal notes since we will be talking about theme and motif throughout the remainder of this course. Theme and motif will be a central fixture along with foreshadowing for all of our stories. We then, in activities 3 and 4, have a discussion where you are going to be charting out the characters in Midsummer Night's Dream. So just like this example, you can do stick figures, you can do it in a Google Doc, you can do it on a piece of paper and take a picture and upload the picture, whatever you are most comfortable with. But we are drawing a diagram and uploading a picture or a document of this diagram that represents the characters' relationships and interactions with each other. So include relationships, both positive and negative, and love interests, fights, job titles, things of that nature. So if they are a king or a queen, they should be labeled. If they are getting married, they should be labeled. If it's like a one-sided love relationship, that should be labeled. If they are siblings or parents or friends that are angry at each other, that should be labeled. So that way we best understand the relationships between our characters, considering that is pretty much the plot of our play, is the emotional endeavors of our characters. So we are having two different diagrams. One is for Act 1, Scene 1, so where our characters start off as far as their relationships and how they feel towards each other, and then one for the end of Act 2, Scene 2. You're going to draw another diagram and upload a picture or upload the document that represents the characters' relationships and interactions with each other at the end of Act 2. So you need to include new characters or relationship changes. How have the characters changed from the beginning of our play to the end of Act 2, Scene 2. You are then going to comment on another student's diagram to discuss how the characters have changed and add any corrections to their diagram if needed, politely. So maybe they miss a character, maybe they accidentally mixed up which characters are in love with which characters. We're just trying to make sure that everybody's on board and aware, so that way it doesn't come as a surprise, maybe in like Act 3 where they didn't realize that character existed and it's a little bit confusing for them. We want to make sure as a team that we all understand what is exactly happening, considering there is a lot of action going on in this play. Alrighty. After the diagram, we are actually going to be reading a second short story along with our play, since we are really focusing on relationships and emotional tension. We are going to be lining up the relationship struggles in Midsummer Night's Dream with the emotional turmoil of a short story called Seasons of Glass and Iron. This is a high fiction fantasy short story by Amal El Motar. I may have butchered that name. I really hope I didn't. But Seasons of Glass and Iron is a great short story that we are going to be analyzing the characters and in the future, meaning next week, comparing them to the healthy and maybe not so healthy relationships in A Midsummer Night's Dream. So we're going to be reading the linked short story right here and then answering some reading questions about that short story. We also have a Quizlet and a study guide. For next week, we will have a test on Acts 1 and 2 of Midsummer Night's Dream. So if you complete this study guide, that will get you 3 bonus points towards the test. That could be 3 multiple choice questions that if you got them wrong, you get those points back. So I do think it is valuable to complete the study guide. Lastly, we have a silent reading reflection. which for week 3, your silent reading reflection is how does the setting of your story that you are reading in your own silent reading time, how does the setting affect the plot of the story, and how might the story change if the setting was different? So you will discuss a little bit about what is happening in your story and the setting in particular, and then comment on one other student's discussion post about what they are currently reading. Alrighty, so that is all the assignments for week 3 in science fiction. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. I will be contacting you throughout the week, just checking in as far as assignments, how you feel about the course, and if you need any extra support. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.